Welcome to the Brie Pod. I'm here with me, Brie. So last week, we had the amazing news of me coming out with my pregnancy, and it's just been super exciting. Now that I can actually talk about it, now I can ask more advice from the mamas out there. Just so many exciting thoughts that have come to mind now that it's out in the open. This Friday, I will be, I think I hit 14 weeks, which I think is the second trimester. And it's been one heck of a ride. I do want to say before I start this that everything that I'm about to say is not me trying to say, oh, I'm not grateful, or, oh, I'm like, there are not other people that have struggled worse. It's just important for me to say these things because I don't want you to take it in that way, because that's not how I mean it. But I also have always told you that I'm going to be unfiltered and I want to be honest and open. And when it's come to the first trimester and my mental health, it's been a whirlwind. It's not to say that I haven't enjoyed the fact that everything that I ever wanted has come, because I'm so grateful and blessed that that has happened. I didn't think that this would happen. I truly believed that I just started to kind of come to terms if I didn't have a child. I also just talked to Jeremy about other ways if I wanted a child. I was never going to do IVF. It's nothing against IVF. It's just I'm too afraid of needles. And I when I have to have a needle for like shots or stuff or get blood and stuff, I deal with it, but I can't do what they do with the needles in IVF. And I applaud any person that has gone through that process, who is going through that process. I send you baby dust. But I knew, and I've always known, it was never for me. I figured if I didn't have children, I could potentially adopt, look into my options, and see what would be best. But the good news is, the baby came, or made a presence at least so far. I'm trying to stay level-headed with it. I don't think that's a good term, but trying to stay calm because there's still a chance that this baby won't make it. And I know that's morbid to think, but I just think that with all the upset and with the times that it didn't happen, I will always have that wall of worry. And it is possible, as many of you know. Just because you're pregnant, it doesn't mean it always goes to term. It's horrible when it does not. I know so many beautiful women out there that have, and even if they only get as far as the first trimester, it's awful. The whole process is awful when it doesn't work out. So I'm trying not to get too excited either, because anything can happen, right? But to talk about the first trimester, I wanted to be very transparent, and it's been rough for me. As many of you know, I have anxiety. I'm recovering from an eating disorder, and I'm eating. Just a side note, I am eating. Every time my body says to eat, I eat. I'm working on nutrition. I met my midwife yesterday, and I'm just focusing on making sure that my body's healthy for the baby. Now, has it been easy coming from having an eating disorder, worrying about body image, worrying about issues? And, I know that it's easy to be like, well, you're bringing life to the world. Like that should be your blessing and that should be the excitement. And it is. But there's always that mental side of why I had the eating disorder. You know what I mean? Of why I felt like I needed to restrict what I eat. Now, mind you, again, I need to repeat this. I am eating. I'm not restricting anything. I'm on a schedule of, I don't even know, I eat a lot at this point, which is good. But I share these things because when you're coming from a place of not eating a lot to having to eat more, that was hard. I mean, that was really hard. And I had to remind myself and keep repeating, like, this is not for you. You cannot be selfish with this. You can't worry about things that are super, like, not healthy at all. You have to eat for this baby and you have to be healthy. And I will say, in the report yesterday from the blood work, from talking to the midwife, I'm so far on a healthy route. And I was very excited to hear that because I really thought they were going to tell me that I'm anemic, which they didn't. So I was kind of impressed myself. But there's been so many emotions too. Like a lot of people, well, I don't think it's talked about enough still, but we talk about postpartum depression. Not enough, but it's at least out there a little bit. I shouldn't say at least because it really needs a lot more emphasis because there are a lot of women right now suffering and either do not know it or they do, but they've been gaslighted by the medical community, gaslighted by family members. Oh, you'll get over it. Oh, it's just this, where they're not sharing it. So if you know anybody that's just had a baby or is giving those signs, like look them up, look up the signs for postpartum because our mamas need help. They need support and they need love. But with that, I feel like we don't always talk about the depression that can be during pregnancy. Now, I've met a lot of people that have loved their pregnancies, that loved every minute of it, and would do it again, you know, if they could, or would do it again in a heartbeat. For me, this is my first one, and it has not been an easy road for me. And I'm not saying that I'm ungrateful for what I'm receiving. And if you feel that that's what I'm saying, then that is not fair because, like, we're allowed to feel. We're human. And it sucks that we always have to be giving a highlight reel when sometimes it's not so, great. Sometimes the highlight reel is not there. Now, I'm not trying to be rude about it, but it just makes me sad when I see people that they want to share how they feel and people are just so quick to jump on them. But in this Unfiltered series, we're doing it anyway. And with that being said, with the first trimester, it had been very rough. Like I said, with eating more food, that was very difficult coming from someone that's recovering from an eating disorder. And the other parts of it was, many of you know this about me, I have IBS and I have had a lot of quote unquote diet restrictions. And I only say that in quotes because it's not that I wanted to be on a diet, it's that my stomach would not process certain foods well. So a lot of times I had to be careful on what I ate because it could either give me acid reflux or it would go through me, with the IBS portion of it. And so this time around, though, in pregnancy, it's almost like tenfold of that, where my digestion has been completely off. I've been trying to introduce fiber. I've been trying to introduce probiotics in hopes that it can regulate it. I did read online that there's a lot of different things remedies that you can use, but it's been hard finding what's working. With that, I've been having a hard time finding things that I can digest well. I didn't realize how much it changes and affects your system. And I mean, it makes sense because according to online, what happens is the baby, especially in the first trimester, is taking your hormones are higher, and the food that you eat and everything that you give yourself is going to the placenta to help the baby's brain and everything grow everything, the system and such. And I guess also because that is also growing, it kind of moves your intestines and everything in certain ways. So it makes digestion a little bit slower. Due to this, it has been really bad. And sorry for the TMI, I have been in the bathroom for like 30 minutes to an hour, almost 2 to 3 times a day due to these issues. And because of this, because certain foods would make it worse, certain foods would make my stomach feel like it was like basically very gassy and painful, where I was crying, where I decided, okay, I need to go super bland because that seems to be what helps. But the problem with the bland food was that it wasn't help moving stuff. So I'd end up constipated for a long time. It was either constipation or diarrhea, but regardless, it would take me an hour to get there. I know it's a lot to be giving you guys, but from the lack of like having food that tastes good, from the feeling of pain, which caused nausea, that's what makes me the most sick, is if I haven't used the bathroom or if I haven't ate enough. That seems to be what really triggers the sickness. Or if I'm anxious, I cannot stop my body from reacting to anxiety. And with all these feelings, it created a lot of depression, a lot of sadness, and a lot of tears. I've cried many, 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 many tears. And it's not the baby that's growing that has been affecting me. It's been the changes that happen so quickly in trying to learn a new nutrition, like basically flipping my life upside down in the food world. And it's kind of funny because I talked about how my eating disorder had affected this of feeling like I always have to eat. I got to a place where I was eating so bland that I was just like, I have a literal list right now of the foods I want to eat when I'm no longer pregnant because I miss them so much and I can't eat them right now because it just hurts. And I've been talking to the doctor. One thing that I will say that I wish could be a thing is like waiting until, I think they wait until you're like 8 weeks to go see a doctor. I almost wish they'd give us a doctor sooner than that because I feel like I had so many questions and felt lost. And even though I did ask friends and I talked to people that had been pregnant before, I still like that feeling of that doctor or midwife just being like, hey, this is all normal. You got this. And I did get that from my people, but I just kind of wish I had that in the beginning before the 8 weeks. And then as time went on, I had to change my diet to kind of affect, well, we say nutrition, but change my nutrition to help my stomach flow. And it's been hard. I feel like it's been a constant, does this work? No. Does this work? No. Does this work? Okay, keep it. But I learned along the way that like I would get a meal that would work and my stomach would be so bad. But then because I don't like the same meal every day or like leftovers that much. If I went to go eat that same meal the next day, the nausea kicked in because now it was like, ugh, that doesn't sound good. I don't want that. So I think from all of that, that brought on a lot of depression and frustration and a lot of crying because it was like, I don't know what my body wants from me. I'm trying to give my body everything that I can. I'm trying to work through the mental health portion of it because it does take a lot of, yourself to do that. So with that, it has been a roller coaster of emotions. And there was a point in time where I just kind of gave up on feeling excited. And then when I got to the very first ultrasound, I was so scared. I made myself so sick feeling. That's how I learned. I feel like it's all been a process of elimination or learning what makes what trigger nausea or what makes this trigger whatever. And I learned from my first ultrasound that anxiety makes everything worse. So when I went to go to my first ultrasound, I was having a panic attack because it's kind of funny when you think about something that you've wanted for so long and you've been praying for it and you want it and you're working hard and then you finally get it. I feel like the reality of it was like, wait, I never thought I was going to get here. How did I get here? And what do I do now? And that's what I felt like I was constantly trying to figure out. And every time I talk to people and be like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. What did you do? They had different experiences, which makes sense because we all have our own bodies and our bodies work differently. And I think that was frustrating too. A lot of the depression and sadness and stuff came from no one really understood, like they understood the part of feeling sick and stuff, but they couldn't help me. They didn't have any answers as to like what would help. And I know that that's kind of a part of being a person, an adult, is figuring it out. But I think that just felt lonely for a little bit because I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. But then months prior of all this, I told Jeremy I told him before I got pregnant and in the beginning of the pregnancy that we should go somewhere. He's wanted to travel all the time. That's like no brainer for him. But I had taken a long break from it because I was worried with COVID and everything. So I said, Jeremy, you know what? We should go and do something. Let's make a plan. So we made a plan. And I'm glad that we did plan Hawaii because I think Hawaii changed a lot of stuff for me in a good way. Because for the past few months, I have not done much as far as adventuring, as far as going places. I wasn't doing a lot of that because I was so sick. I was in bed. I was depressed, which did not help. And it has nothing to do with being depressed by my child. Is the depression of the body changes that had occurred and have been occurring. And then on top of that, when I added the braces, that was like all the snacks that I finally figured out, all the things that I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to eat, all went out the window because I can't eat certain things due to the braces. Now, many of you have messaged me and said, hey, I still eat blah, 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 and blah, which I am learning that I can do. But at the time, it was just figuring it all out. And I didn't realize how long it would take for the braces to not hurt as bad. And now that I've learned that too, I've realized, so after it gets tightened, that's when I can't really eat that. Like, for example, in Hawaii, I had a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, but the bagel wasn't really hard. It was like perfect softness, so I was able to eat it. But had I tried that in the beginning when they tightened it, oh, that would hurt. So it's just learning. It's just learning the changes. And I think we're all afraid of changes and what it can do and what it has done. I mean, it's flipped my world upside down. And I know it's going to get even more intense. So it's just been learning to basically dive through these waters that I've never been in. And I do feel like my mental health is getting a bit better as of recent of maybe a week because I did cry in Hawaii the first 2 days. But I think it's just because I thought, oh no, what am I going to eat here? Like I finally had a plan. Okay, this is what I'm going to eat. This will help me. This is what time I need to go to the bathroom to make sure this happens. I had a plan. But then when I get to Hawaii, I didn't have my microwave. I didn't have the oven. I didn't have the air fryer of what, like all the things that I make. So I had gotten worried. And I'm like, oh no, what do I eat now? What do I do? So the first night, I did not do well because I ate something that I wasn't supposed to, and it was painful. So I cried and was upset again. The second night, I just was frustrated because I was in like this beautiful place and I wanted to explore and I wanted to see and do, but I just did not feel good. But then when we finally got to Maui and things settled down, it got better. And then I started like enjoying the trip because now I had a new routine. I had new food ideas of how I would eat, which I had a lot of shrimp, by the way. Loved the shrimp. Like the shrimp didn't really have much on it because I can't do any seasonings or anything exciting, but I didn't care. The shrimp by itself, oh gosh, I lived on shrimp as much as I could anyway. But yeah, it has been intense this first trimester, but I do feel like now that I've learned from all these past weeks of what I need to do, how my schedule works, and now that I talked to the midwife yesterday, I am starting to feel a lot better. And I've kept therapy in my life because I know it's important and I know it's very healthy for me. And I'm just like continuing to move forward. But I wanted to share these things because this is Unfiltered series. This is my raw and honest opinion. This is not that I'm enough. I just hope that you don't go and take away this as like, oh, she's not grateful. I could never, ever say that I'm not grateful. It's just been one ride that I never have been on. So it's new. And change has always been scary to me. But the more and more as I walk through this journey, and I have all my support system, the more and more it has been better and better. And the person that I have to shout out to, who would roll his eyes at this, is my husband, because he has been the best support of all. Not saying that my friends and my parents and peeps over there haven't been supportive or loving, but my husband has been there through every single tear, through all the times I said I hate feeling this way. I don't want to eat anymore. I had a lot of breakdowns. He's been supportive. He's been loving. He's made sure as well, because what I love about our relationship is a very accountable relationship. So he's made sure that I am nourishing my body, not only for myself, but for the baby, and just making sure I'm taking care of myself. And it has been very helpful to have someone like him in my life, because it's, yeah, wow. But with all that being said, Benji is super excited, I think. I don't know, he might miss the attention all on him only, but I think he's super excited to be a big brother to our baby. And in, I think, the end of April, early May, we will be announcing the gender, because that's when we should find out. So we're very excited and just looking forward to continuing bringing you on this journey. And next week, I'm excited because one of my friends will be joining me on the podcast to talk about her birth plan, which is really cool. is we wanted to talk about that a bit because it's not something that is always done like it is done. It's like I feel like people are starting to do more really cool things out there, but yeah, it's very exciting. So anyway, the best advice or affirmation that I would give at this point is, and this is what I've used a lot when I don't feel good. I use this when endo flares were really bad. I use this when I feel like I have nothing left to give of myself, that this is only temporary. Right now may feel like the worst time, but there's so many times in my life that I thought was the worst time, and it felt like the worst time, but I got through it and I made it through. And you can too. And that I feel this is only temporary is the best reminder, because sometimes we get stuck in the thoughts of thinking that it'll last forever. But the feelings that don't feel good or hurt, like, I'm not saying your mental health goes away. I'm not saying that your sickness goes away, because endo is basically for life until they figure that out. But it's still that in that moment, it's only temporary. So with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time, on the Brie Pod. Bye.